This was the problem which we started yesterday to solve. So it's about an impulse turbine stage. So you are given the initial condition 7 bar and 300 degrees centigrade, and it expands to 3 bar. Then the nozzle angle 70 degrees is given. So the rotor blades have equal inlet and outlet angles. It's for impulse turbine. Then the idea of optimum blade speed ratio, isentropic efficiency is given. You're asked to find out the blade angle used, then mass flow rate required to produce 75 kilowatts. Then the values Cp and gamma are given, and you see that it is different from 1.4, which we use for air, and this also Cp is little more. Okay, the R value is also not 287. If we are using it, it is something like 461 joules per kg K. Okay, so from the TS diagram, or rather HS diagram, so we initially find out the point, the temperature at 1s. So actual expansion in the nozzle is 0e to 1. Then subsequently there is no expansion, the pressure remains constant, or rather the enthalpy remains constant. Yeah, here you see one thing. When you talk about impulse turbines, in hydro turbines, we always say that the pressure in the rotor remains constant. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is an important point. Some see advanced books, they talk about this. That is the basic question they ask is, what is the difference between zero reaction turbine and impulse turbine? So a person who doesn't know about this, it should be baffling. When degree of reaction is 0, we call it impulse turbine. Okay. Then what about the pressure? So there is, in hydraulic turbines, the pressure also will remain constant. But in thermal turbines, you see, between 1 to 2, what I have shown here is essentially the static enthalpy remains constant. So if you use the definition, enthalpy drop in the rotor divided by enthalpy drop in the stage, I will get degree of reaction 0. But what I find is, see, there is a small drop in pressure. If the pressure is constant, rather, one should have moved little higher, very close to, that is 2 should be around this point, not 2 point, and not 2 would have gone little higher. Okay, so there's a small difference between this degree of reaction 0, where the enthalpy at 1 and 2 are same, and the impulse turbine, where the pressure at 1 and 2 will be same. So please note it. I may not be able to tell you later, and you might get a question on that. Okay, so coming back here, so we find out the temperature at 1s. That is how I get 1s is I extend 1 with constant pressure line. That cuts the initial entropy line, and that point is 1s. 1s is little lower than 1. That means the temperature here is little less. So initially between OE, that is 0, not E, and 1s isentropic line, I use the isentropic pressure temperature ratio relationship, get T1s. Then using the definition of nozzle efficiency, I finally get the value of temperature at 1. Then I have the delta T from the delta T, I find out the velocity C1, the entry velocity for the turbine. Okay, then you can see the uh, blade with the velocity triangles. So this part, velocity triangle and all those things, that is some sort of momentum analysis, whereas TS diagram is some sort of energy analysis, thermodynamic analysis. Okay, then we use the condition for optimum blade ratio. So that is U by C1 is equal to 1 by 2 sine alpha 1 complement. See, alpha 1 complement is not the alpha 1 shown here, but 90 minus that, which is equal to 70 degrees. So I get U is equal to 223.5. So next we will see. So next you see the velocity triangle here. See, velocity triangle at exit, I have slightly modified because now I know some values, and this C2 velocity is in the axial direction. So now you can guess what this optimum means. When C1 is when C2 is in the axial direction, it doesn't have any world component. That means for that particular flow rate combination, this is the minimum C2 value, or the kinetic energy associated with that, which is actually the carryover kinetic energy, that is minimum. So you have an inlet kinetic energy half C1 square, and your exit is only half C2 square. So when C2 is minimum, that is the optimum condition. For C2 to be minimum, it should be rather in the axial direction. So our calculation will indicate that C2 is almost axial. Okay, we will come to that. Okay, now since C1, U and alpha 1 are known, inlet velocity triangle can be drawn. Okay, 3 values only you need for drawing a triangle. Hence, the other parameters beta 1, Cu1, Cf1, W1 can be calculated. All these 4 values are associated with the inlet triangle, which we can think of when you know C1, U and alpha 1. Okay, so the values of beta 1 is 54 degrees, Cu1 447 meters per second, Cf1 224 meters per second, W1 276.8 meters per second. I have just calculated phi1. Now what is phi1? What is phi1? Tell me someone.
Flow coefficient.
Yeah, see, initial itself I said, flow coefficient, loading coefficient, degree of reaction. So when you think of all these thermal turbines or thermal machines, these 3 are some important parameters, especially when they are axial flow machines. And with these 3, you should be able to construct the velocity triangle. Okay. Only thing is, to know the exact dimension of the velocity triangle, at least one value of U or something you should know. Otherwise, these velocity triangles will be similar only. Okay. Then for impulse turbine, ignoring the blade friction, W1 is equal to W2. Usually, in many problems, this ratio will be given. W2 by W1 given as some 0.8 or 0.9, which is the friction coefficient for the blades. Okay, here it's not, we assume it to be 1, then only beta 1 equal to beta 2. Thus, knowing now U, we have W2 which is equal to W1 and beta 2 equal to beta 1. Again, 3 values are there. So now it should be clear to you that when you know the 3 values, that is sufficient to construct the velocity triangle. So the exit velocity triangle also can be constructed. Okay, so then you can calculate Cu2. You see the Cu2 value is W. Yeah, So this angle here is beta 2, that minus u. So the value is only 0.4. It is almost 0. Okay, that is why C2 is indicated here as almost axial. So now specific work can be calculated, U delta Cu. So that comes to 99,994 meters square, almost a lakh. Okay. Now, having known this, I have just calculated the loading coefficient. Psi is equal to delta Cu by U. So now if you think of the most important non-dimensional numbers, the phi, psi and degree of reaction, phi is 1, psi is 2. What is R? What is the value of R? Okay, are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
See, phi is 1, psi is 2. So you can see in the figure also here, this is 1, that is almost 2. What is the value of the degree of reaction in this case? What do? Take psi, find out the midpoint, from there you drop a line, then there that line has to divide this base in the ratio degree of reaction is to 1 minus R. So what is the value of R here? You have not formed, I think, good general understanding of it. See, for impulse turbines, R will be almost 0. Okay, so R is 0 here. But there is a small difference, technically they talk about impulse and degree of reaction. Okay, and their differences will be very small. Okay, now this is equal to m dot into WSB. I think that was the second or the third equation I gave in turbo machines. So the specific work is defined as the power for unit mass flow rate. And for specific work, I gave the equation, Euler equation. It is equal to delta UCU. So these equations, 1, 2, or 3 equations are the most important. So we find that this power is given 75 kilowatts. So mass flow rate comes to 0.75 kg per second. Okay. Next we see another one. So we have a 50% reaction gas turbine. It has a flow coefficient of 1 and a loading coefficient of 2. Sketch the TS diagram and the combined velocity trapezium. Determine the blade angles and the specific work. Also, assuming an inlet stagnation temperature of 600 K and a stagnation pressure of 8 bar at rotor entry, okay, a mean blade speed of 300 meters per second, a mean blade diameter of 300 millimeters, and a blade height of 30 mm. Determine the power developed. Take gamma equal to 1.333, Cp equal to 1.15 kilojoules per kgK. From the inlet, okay, now you are given R, which is 0.5, flow coefficient is 1, and loading coefficient is 2. Now, can you sketch the combined, non-dimensional velocity trapezium? Okay. Now, you please try, at least some of you complete and tell me. I will wait till then. You are given these 3 important parameters. Take a paper, see whether you can complete the combined non-dimensional velocity trapezium. So please do that. At least some of you try and tell me whether you have completed. I will give you 1 minute. Anybody has completed? Vishnu, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Did you do that?
No, sir.
Okay, anyhow, I will explain. See, first you have to draw a line, horizontal line of 1 unit always, because the always 1. So draw a perpendicular line at and mark a length, flow coefficient. Here it is 1. Then from there, you draw a horizontal line and you mark 5 this thing psi by 2 on one side and psi by 2 on the other side. So you will get the top side of the trapezium. Then join the ends. In this case, even here it is R is 0.5. So the base, there at the midpoint, you have to draw the perpendicular line. If R is given as 0.3, in the base at 0.3, you have to draw the perpendicular line and mark a distance equal to flow coefficient. Then you draw a horizontal line and either side you mark distances psi by 2 and psi by 2. Did you get me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
good. So given any 3 combination, okay, you should be able to do that, isn't it? So now I will give you a combination. Say flow coefficient is 0.8, degree of reaction is 0.6, and loading coefficient is 0.8. Try to draw that. Okay, have you finished? Okay, so it should be simple matter only. See, again, you will get all the angles, but to calculate quantitatively, at least one value should be given. Remember, at least one value to, actually for actual design and other things, the speed might be known, but for, academic, complicating things, one may give the value of W1. Okay, what relative velocity is given. And if you don't know this idea, you might find it extremely difficult to solve. But once you know this idea, one W1, all the other parameters can be calculated. So you need these 3 parameters plus the magnitude of one of the velocity components here. Okay, now coming back here, sketch the TS diagram, the combined velocity trapezium, determine the blade angles and the specific work. Also assuming an inlet okay, also assuming the inlet stagnation temperature of 600 K and stagnation pressure of 80 bar at rotor entry, a mean blade speed of 300 meters per second, mean blade diameter of 300 millimeters, then blade height is given. You are asked to find out the power developed. So now from the velocity triangle, you can calculate alpha 1, which is also equal to beta 1. This is alpha 1. So this side it is beta alpha 1 should be equal to beta 2. Then you can calculate beta and based on that beta 1. So beta 1, when it is known, that should be equal to alpha 2. Then you can calculate the absolute velocity of the inlet velocity, okay, the magnitude of that. So that is equal to 1.5 u, it comes to 541 meters per second. So now u, it is given, c also you have calculated, and you can calculate specific work. Specific work you can calculate, of course, from this formula itself. That is, loading coefficient is equal to specific work by U square. That is the definition. Okay. Now, because specific work in this case is U into delta Cu, one U and one U will get cancelled. So we get delta Cu by U. That is how we have that as the top side of the combined velocity non-dimensional trapezium. Okay, now so we can calculate the specific work. Then we can calculate say for the other calculations. First we find out the temperature T1. T1 is not given, but T0 is known. Okay, the stagnation temperature is 600 K. So stagnation temperature at nozzle entry and nozzle exit, they are all same. Okay, so from that, using this isentropic energy equation, T1 equal to 473 K. Okay, now to find the power developed, the important thing is, the mass flow rate should be determined. We are already given the specific work we have calculated. 1,80,000, am I right? Yeah, 1,80,000. So that is not only mass flow rate. To find the mass flow rate, we have to find the volume flow rate. At entry, we can find it at any place, but we'll find it at entry to the rotor. So that volume flow rate is Q1. Then multiply by the density ρ1. So we have m dot at 1 is equal to Q1 into ρ1. To find ρ1, we will use the equation ρ1 is equal to P1 by RT1. So already we have calculated T1. Then R value is given. Okay. See, R value, see, we can calculate also like this. Cp into gamma R by gamma minus 1. Cp is equal to gamma R by gamma minus 1. We will get, you are given Cp about 1150. Then gamma is 1.33 by minus 1 by gamma. That comes to around 287.5 joules per kgK. So now R is calculated. Now we have to calculate P1 and T1. P1 can be calculated by the isentropic relationship between 0.1 and 1. So the pressure ratio is equal to temperature ratio power gamma by gamma minus 1. So P1 by P01 is equal to T1 by T01 power gamma by gamma minus 1. Of this, P01 is given in the problem, 8 bar. So you can find out P1, which is 3.1 bar. So you calculate ρ1, it comes to 2.28 kg per meter cube. So I can calculate Q1, that is equal to A1 into CF1. Now CF1 is equal to U because flow coefficient is 1. Then A1 equal to pi into d mean into the height of the blade H. The annular region is the area. Mean diameter is dm, height is h. So that is equal to pi into 0.3 into 0.03. That comes to 0.0283 meter square. So I can find out the mass flow rate. Q1 into ρ1. It is about 19.3 kg per second. And P equal to specific work into m dot. That is equal to 3.48 megawatt. Okay, that is 3,480 kilowatt. Now, what is the size of the rotor? Somebody tell me. What is the size of the rotor?
300 mm.
Approximately how many feet? 1 feet. Okay. I think 1 feet is a distance which you can easily understand. It is not just a number, isn't it? Okay, you know about 1 foot. that scale is there. And the gap is how much? Blade height is how much?
30 mm, sir.
30 mm. How many centimeters? 3 centimeters gap. And what is the power produced?
3.5, nearly 3.5 megawatt.
5 megawatt. Don't you think that these turbines produce so much power for small size? Okay, the reason is the specific work is very high, and another thing is the speed of rotation. We have not calculated the speed of rotation. Okay, can someone quickly calculate this? Anybody has a calculator? Quickly calculate the speed and tell me. Let me see.
Sir, 19,100.
Yes, about 20,000 RPM. Okay, so the speed is very high. So you have to really, think like an engineer. That is a small size, 1 foot. Oh, these are all theoretical calculations. But when somebody really wants to make it, a beginner cannot make it. Some big companies, they are already used to making machines like that, 20,000 RPM with so much forces, the bearings, and so many things are there. It's not an easy job, but the calculation indicates. Okay, now I think next we will discuss something about the steam turbines. See, steam turbines, they are external combustion prime movers used extensively in thermal and nuclear power plants. Okay, now all of you will be knowing that in thermal power plants, steam turbine is being used. Nuclear power plant also, final energy production is by steam turbines only. Okay, the thermal energy comes from the nuclear reactor is there. Then final from nuclear, that energy, steam is generated, and steam turbines are used in nuclear power plants, okay, to generate electric power. It is one of the important components in the Rankine cycle. See, because we cannot separate the Rankine cycle from this. You have a thermodynamic cycle called a Rankine cycle. It's a vapor power cycle. Different, there complicated cycles are there. Then the basic, there are many classifications of steam turbines. So basically it is classed under impulse or reaction. The reaction turbine, otherwise called Parsons reaction turbine, I'll discuss later. Then under impulse turbine, we have the 3 types: the de Laval or simple impulse turbine. The second one is the Curtis or velocity compounded impulse turbines. Then you have the Rato turbine, which is pressure compounded impulse turbine. Then you have one more called the velocity pressure velocity compounded turbine. Now we'll see first, the de Laval turbine. See, de Laval, the Swedish inventor, he has given this turbine, which is, I think, not very much used because these turbines run at extremely high speeds. But another important thing is, you might be knowing about the CD nozzle, converging diverging nozzle. So that this person only has invented. Okay, the first person to probably use it, because normally to increase the velocity, our human intuition will tell to reduce the area of cross section. But in some cases where when the velocity is extremely high, the area has to be increased. So such a nozzle is called the converging diverging nozzle. When we study gas dynamics, we know that at the minimum area, the velocity reaches the velocity of sound in that medium, or in other words, Mach number is 1. So when Mach number 1 is reached, further, if you want to increase the velocity, though you have very small pressure on the downstream side, you have to increase the area of cross section. Okay, so that maybe accidentally or in some way, this man was the first one to find out. Now afterwards, derivations came, and we know that for supersonic flow, the area has to be increased. Now the working, we will see high pressure steam is generated in the boiler. It is regulated by a valve. Always between the boiler and the steam turbines, there may be one or two valves, and one main valve is there, so which will control the flow. The steam after that enters the initial region, something like the port region of AC engines. You have, it's called the steam chest. Then the steam goes through the nozzle, where the entire pressure and enthalpy is converted to velocity. So in the graph you can see the pressure decreases, the velocity increases. Okay, now expansion, when you think of the word expand, we actually think of increase in volume. Okay, obviously it is happening, that must be the reason. So for us, increase in velocity is also important. Then along with that, we know the pressure and the temperature will decrease, though only pressure is marked here. If I mark the temperature, that also will fall. Then in the rotor blade transfer, in the nozzle, what happens is, it is not energy transfer. In the nozzle, what happens is not energy transfer, but it is energy transformation. The same steam is having all the energy. The steam has not given its energy to somebody else. It is having the same energy, but the mix is instead of pressure or enthalpy, it is kinetic energy. Oh, that's called the transformation, energy transformation. So finally, after giving all the energy to the blades here, the steam leaves with very low pressure and temperature and velocity. So all the energy is given. So that is the simple idea of developable turbine. Now we'll see how this got modified later into Curtis and Rato turbines. So this Curtis stage is otherwise called the velocity compounded impulse turbine. Now see what is compounding of turbines. So compounding is generally used with respect to impulse turbines. It is the method of reducing the speed of the turbines without compromising with the efficiency. Okay, this point is very important. Suppose you have a D-level turbine. Okay, it has to run at 20,000 RPM. It has to run at 20,000 RPM, and there it might be producing so much megawatts. Now the load you have connected is such that run at what will happen to the energy with the steam? Please think and tell me. So see, 100 units of energy is coming through the nozzle. Okay, so if the blades rotate at 20,000 RPM, it will give all the 100 units of energy. Now the load is not moving that fast, so rotor blade is moving half the speed only. No, so what will happen to the energy that is coming out?
It will be decreasing.
Which will decrease?
Energy unit will be decreased.
See, inlet 100 units of energy is there. Normally, if the blade rotates at 20,000 RPM, it will take all the 100. Now it is rotating at 10,000 RPM only, not 20,000. So how much energy will come out with the steam? So one is your calculation, one is some sort of intuition. What do you feel?
It will be more than for 20,000.
More than?
More than whatever it would be for 20,000.
That is there. Suppose I hold the rotor shaft, with a great torque. What will be the energy of steam that is coming out?
Same as the
That is an intuition or something tells you. Only thing is the holding torque will be very, very high. Okay, not the torque the rotor would have developed when rotating at 20,000. Much more you have to use to hold it. Okay, now instead of 20,000, now it is not at rest also, it is rotating at 10,000 RPM. Then what will be the nature of the energy available outside?
Yeah, around half.
Around?
Half.
Half. Around 50. Because power is energy given is directly proportional to the speed. Okay, so around 50% is there. So this way, you can run a D-level turbine. The efficiency will not be very high. It will fall down to 50%. So in compounding, we reduce the speed of the turbine without compromising with the efficiency. All the energy also will be used. So the first method is the Curtis stage, where you have the rotor with two rows of blades, and in between that person has put a row of stator blades. Now you can see what happens. In the nozzle, entire pressure is reduced, the velocity is increased. Then in the first blade, some amount of velocity drop is there, energy is given. Then in the stator, the velocity magnitude remains constant, but it will change the direction, so that in the next set of fixed blades, the next energy absorption takes place, the velocity reduces and it goes out with low velocity. So by this technique, putting in between a row of blades, stationary blades, which will redirect the flow to the proper direction. Okay, this is called velocity compounding. Okay, because the pressure is dropped in the first nozzle itself. Okay, now there is the second method, the pressure compounded turbine. Here what happens is, again the rotor is there, so you have two sets of rotor blades. In between you have a stator whose function is not to just redirect the flow, but also to increase the velocity. So you can see, first nozzle, pressure decreases, velocity goes up. Okay, then in the first set of rotating, then in the second set of nozzles, velocity is increased, pressure is decreased. Okay, so some modification has to be done in the figure. Stop with this. Then again in the rotor blade, pressure should be constant, velocity decreases. Okay, now incidentally another diagram is given below. Do you recognize the diagram? What is the diagram called? What is the name of HS diagram for steam? Okay, so it's called the Mollier diagram. See, the main difference is, the relationship between the temperature and enthalpy. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, in the case of air, constant enthalpy lines are constant temperature lines. Now you have a curved line here. Okay, that is the saturation line. Okay, vapor, completely liquid vapor conversion line. Below that, you have the constant pressure lines, and we know that the temperature also is constant along that line, but enthalpy is not constant. So that region is the wet region. So after that transition line, constant pressure line is there. H line will be constant. H line will be horizontal because H is the y-axis, and constant temperature line will be slightly higher than constant enthalpy line. They don't follow the constant pressure line. Okay, this is elementary thermodynamics of pure substances. You can refer any of the books which you have studied. Okay, so that is one problem. Directly we cannot use our pressure ratio, temperature ratio equations for calculating the parameters for steam. Here there is a difference. Okay, so any doubt? So I think I'll close it. Tomorrow Monday we will continue.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank
And,
Thank you, sir.